Hello and welcome to another edition of Africa Teaching, a production of the Pepperbird Magazine and Chesson Worldwide 360. I'm Karen McLaurin-Chesson, your host, and today we're going to see some magic. I'd like to introduce you to Margaret Steele, a renowned magician, and it's very rare that women are into doing magic. So Margaret, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Karen, would you like to see my magic bunny rabbit?
I would love to see your magic bunny
He's
rabbit.
right in here. Well, wake him up. Come on, wake up. Here he is. I mean, he needs a little introduction. There he is. Oh, he's backwards. His name is Felix.
Oh,
yes.
Hello, Felix.
And Felix has another little magic friend. She's in here somewhere, too. Let me see if I gotta wake her up. Here she is. Another introduction.
Whoa.
Her name is Gladys.
Hey, Gladys.
Whoa, no, don't run away.
Gladys.
Don't run away, Gladys. So, Felix and Gladys are named after a couple of famous magicians from a long time ago. In fact, Felix Herrmann was Adelaide's nephew, and this bunny's named after him. And Gladys was his very difficult wife.
Oh.
But these bunnies can do amazing magic. Would you like to see their magic?
I'd love to see their magic.
Would you rather hold Felix or Gladys?
I'll hold Gladys.
Okay. Hold her tightly. Don't let her go. Squeeze really hard. I know she's squirmy. Squeeze hard.
Oh, sorry, Gladys.
Felix is going to go back into my bag.
Okay.
Oh, he's all excited.
Oh, because...
Yeah. So when I count to 3, we're going to say, go Felix. And when he hears us say that, I'm going to open the bag. He's going to leap from my bag into your hand and join Gladys. You might not even feel him arrive.
Oh.
You ready?
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Go Felix. Did you feel him arrive?
No.
Open your hand.
Ah! Dear! Wow! All right, there's Felix and Gladys.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
God. Oh, sorry. Gladys got a back facing you.
Yeah.
There's Felix and Gladys, and I'm scared of them. Oh.
You're scared of them?
Well, no, I'm scared of you.
Scared of me. Actually, that wasn't even their best magic.
Oh.
No, would you like to see their best magic?
Yes.
I'm going to give you both bunnies. Squeeze them really hard. Don't let them go.
Don't let them go.
Do you know what bunnies like to do best?
What?
Party.
Oh!
Yes.
Yes. Oh, and that's what they're doing.
They're doing right now. Shall we see how they're doing with their party?
Yeah.
Open your hand.
Oh, shoot!
They had a good party.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Chesson Worldwide Communications 360. I'm J. Rodney Chesson, producer and director. Today our show is all about magic. It is also about a great legend of the African American magical community who has remained silent all of these years, but still a great magical legend. And he is none other than the late Isaac, the Great Boomsky, Willis. Now this show is significant not only because we want to reveal and expose the Great Boomsky to our community, but also because the Great Boomsky was the grandfather of our own co-producer and co-director, Karen McLaurin-Chesson. Now, Boomsky was a young page or messenger in the White House who was fortunate enough to meet Alexander the Great magician of the 1900s, one of the great magicians of the 1900s, a very wealthy, influential, and great magician who performed occasionally at the White House. It was at one of his performances that the young Boomsky Willis got to meet Herrmann the Great and was fortunate enough to be taken on by him to be a protege. Now, throughout his experiences, Boomsky traveled all over the world. And also we must note that there were numerous other Boomskys because it was a stage name that Herrmann used for his assistant who performed magic along with him. But Willis was one of the only Boomsky that lasted a long time and performed in great places with Alexander the Great, with Herrmann the Great. So this was the legacy of this man. And after Herrmann the Great died, Boomsky, his protege, refused to let the art of Herrmann's performance die with him. So Boomsky began to perform his own magical act, and he was also a musician who traveled and played for Herrmann the Great. So he played dual roles, and as an assistant, you will learn through the conversation Karen is going to have with her guests how Boomsky was also instrumental in furthering the magical and entertainment act of Herrmann the Great. So without any further ado, or wasting your time any further, I would like to take this opportunity to turn over to Karen, our co-producer, who will lay out the full legacy of Isaac, the Great Boomsky Willis, with her guests from New York City. Thank you, and please stay tuned as I turn over to Karen.
Hello and welcome back to Africa Teaching. A few moments ago, I introduced you to Margaret Steele, a renowned magician, female magician, and there are very few female magicians. And she also authored a book on Adelaide Herrmann, Queen of Magic. Adelaide Herrmann was the wife of Alexander Herrmann, Herrmann the Great. And Margaret learned a lot about her work and shares it in this book. And Margaret also has some history on my grandfather. My grandfather was a magician, and his name was the Great Boomsky. His name is Isaac Willis. Fathered 8 children, adopted 2, was married to Rachel, his wife, and at any rate, the Great Boomsky had outstanding magic technique that Margaret discovered along with Bruce, and that's how we came together. She really will be using some of my grandfather's work, and I'm excited about that. And she'll also get his name out there. To my right is Bernard Phillips. And I want to welcome you, Bernard, because Bernard wrote an article in the Nova Scotia Chronicle Herald. But Bernard is an ethnomusicologist and a professor at Medgar College in New York. So I really appreciate coming, Bernard, and coming to share information about Isaac. So thanks. I'm really humbled to have these two people here. They came quite a distance to so that we could meet and chat. And Margaret, I'd love it if you'd share some information that you have on Isaac and tell us about that Chronicle Herald article.
Well, Isaac Willis played a character in the greatest illusion show that there ever was. It was the Herrmann the Great Magic Show.
Yes.
This is the first great illusion show, and he played a character known as Boomsky. He was one of a number of young men who played this role over the 25 years or so that the Herman Show was running all over the world. So he traveled all over the U.S. and Canada performing in this show, and he played a very important role. The character Boomsky was a comic character in the show, and he served as the foil to Herman the Great. So everything he touched turned into a disaster.
Wow.
So he would borrow a hat from a man in the audience and then fall on it and destroy it. And of course, the magician had to make this all right.
Right.
But the real secret to it was that he was very skilled. And it took a lot of skill to look unskilled.
Yes.
And also, behind the scenes, he was actually performing a lot of the tricks because nobody suspected him. He was just the young man on stage who was falling on hats.
Yes.
He seemed really klutzy and clumsy. Another trick he did was eggs would appear out of his mouth.
Wow.
One after the other till he had a whole armful of eggs.
Wow.
Didn't know what to do with them, right?
Wow.
But it looked like the magician was taking them out of his mouth, but he was helping. And he was also learning the skill to be a magician himself. And because of Isaac Willis and the other magicians who were Boomsky, they started a whole tradition of magic in the black community that would not otherwise have been there.
Well, that's
Yes.
exciting
Yes.
too.
Yes.
Because here, even in Rhode Island, we don't have magic shows. So
I know a few magicians. I'm going to tell you where to go.
Oh, wonderful! Wonderful! Thank you. And you want to discuss?
Oh yes. So it was through a great good fortune that my partner Bruce McNabb, who lives in Nova Scotia but couldn't be here today, discovered your family in Truro, Nova Scotia. It was through a series of, we were looking at a magic history book, and there was one word that sent us to Truro.
Yes.
The word Truro.
Yeah.
And Bruce lives near there, so he went to the library and looked up Boomsky and went and knocked on the door of your cousin.
Okay.
And found out that very, very much so they knew about your grandfather. But they didn't know how to get his information to the rest of the world. So we wrote this article. This is a very famous poster of one of the great Herrmanns, Leon Herrmann, and Boomsky. And at the time, your grandfather was Boomsky in the show, so this is a representation of your grandfather, Isaac Willis.
Right.
And the article was published in the Chronicle Herald in February of 2017 during African Heritage Month in Canada.
That's wonderful.
Yes, and we got this full spread. These are a bunch of your cousins and a picture of your grandfather. This is a picture of Isaac when he was very young, about the time he started in the Herman Show. And this is a biographical article about your grandfather by Bruce McNabb. This is an article that I wrote about the character of Boomsky in the show that was played by a number of young men over the years. Although your grandfather was really one of the main ones and one of the ones that formed his own career out of it.
Yeah.
And then this is an article that Bernard Phillips wrote about playing blackface in blackface, which is something that he can discuss with you a little later. But we were very fortunate to have this article in the paper.
Right.
And we hope to
That
go
is
further
beautiful.
with this, a lot further with the research, because your grandfather was a very, very important character in the golden age of magic.
Yes. Oh, that's so exciting. And
I'd like to say that as an ethnomusicologist, one of the things that we do is to look at ethnology.
yes.
And by ethnology, we mean certain cultural trends that may occur during one period that may be different in another period, particularly if you're looking at the 19th century,
Right.
when Isaac Willis was doing his performance, versus, say, 21st century, and looking back and determining if it's proper. I wrote the article on playing blackface in blackface because Margaret came to me with the idea, and my students had, in the courses of my cultural classes, discussed the minstrelsy period. And we talked about how it was important for musicians, magicians, singers, dancers to play their acts in blackface because that was the norm. And so we look back without having a decision or without having judgmental eyes on why they did this, because it was a part of how they made their living.
I see.
It was important. And when Margaret told me that your cousins were upset about, or not upset, but were concerned about this blackface issue, I thought immediately about my students who also had the same problems with what was occurring in the 19th century. But it was a different time,
Yes.
and it was important for people to earn a living.
Yes.
And that was the norm.
Yes. And then earning a living in terms of Isaac, he had multiple jobs.
Good living.
Yes.
Mhm.
Well, I guess with 10 kids, you better have a good living. And the magic was a critical aspect of his income, but also the fact that he had a shoe shine shop, and he and my grandmother had the restaurant.
Enterprising.
They were very enterprising.
And the railroad, he worked for the railroad.
And the railroad, yes. And as a younger person, he worked at the White House. He was a messenger for the White House.
And he was a musician as well. After performing in the Herman Show, he went and joined one of the top minstrel shows and toured for years as a magician and as a musician. He played the banjo as well.
Excellent. The man was brilliant.
Yes.
Really brilliant. And I'm so glad that his legacy will live on
Yes.
because of your work. And your work, Bernard's work, Bruce's work. And, folks, it's really exciting to be able to learn all these dynamics that, play a role in the life of Isaac Willis. And behind me is a poster I have to get up so you can see him. It's a lovely poster on Isaac in the work that he did as a magician. And also next to that picture is a certificate from Leon Herrmann, the great, stating that Isaac worked with him for 5 years. And, these are authentic documents for the history of magic. So I'm really excited and honored to, I never knew my grandfather, but I'm honored that he left a legacy, an important legacy to the magic world. And now you authored, you have a book that's currently
Yes, in publication.
in publication.
I wrote a text called African American Classical Musicians Exceeding Boundaries. And this is a mixed method study where I had interviews with about 30 people in major orchestras around the country. But I also interviewed musicians who are creating and forming their own performing vehicles. And I looked at the success of one group versus the other. We define what success is, and that's something that musicians rarely want to discuss.
Yes.
But we talked about that, and I sort of parsed some specific quantitative data that looked at how the numbers of people in symphony orchestras who happen to be African American, and looked at some of those resulting interviews and saw how those things played a role in the development of the musicians that were actually being interviewed.
Wow.
What Bernard isn't telling you is that he himself was a world-class classical flutist and former principal flutist of the Houston Grand Opera.
Oh,
Yes.
wow. Outstanding.
He's just too modest.
Yes. Oh, thank you, Margaret, for
Actually, when I became an ethnomusicologist, I sort of spent so much time researching that it's difficult to actually maintain that high level of expectation for that profession.
Just less than 2 months ago, he played at City Center in New York with Dance Theater of Harlem, playing the solo flute part in the revival of the Jeffrey Holder piece Dougla.
Yeah. And Dougla.
It was spectacular.
It was
I was
fun.
there. I was like, yay!
That was fun.
That's wonderful.
Great production. And,
It was incredible.
I say it was my return to the pit.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. Amazing. Well, congratulations.
Well, thanks.
And
Thank you.
good luck with your book as well.
Okay, thank you.
And folks, I'm about to wrap this up. I'm delighted that Margaret and Bernard traveled the distance to come share their information with you about Isaac Willis and the Great Boomsky magician. And I'm delighted to share that information with you. With that said, I hope that you will watch Africa Teach-In again. And thank you both for coming. Really, I'm delighted that you came, and you'll have to keep us abreast of your work so that we can have another interview. And folks, you can probably Google Isaac Willis. You could Google Margaret Steele, see what she's doing, as well as Bernard Phillips. And I want to thank you for watching Africa Teach-In. I hope that you too will make a difference in the life of somebody else. And I hope that you also stay tuned to watch us again. Take care. Thanks for watching Africa Teach-In.